And how about that new intro for WJ Live? And welcome to WJ Live. My name's Josh Manning. I am Deputy Managing Editor for assignment at the Western Journal. Joining me today, Tara Schneider. She's an assignment editor for the Western Journal. And Michael Austin, who is the supervising reporter for the Western Journal. Thank you guys for being here.
Good to be here.
So the State of the Union was last night. First State of the Union in 4 years that didn't have Trump helming it. I guess in 5 years that didn't have Trump helming it. And not nearly as interesting or engaging, I have to say. Sadly, we watched it from here last night and covered it, and there were some good moments. We're going to go back through those. Specifically, we want to talk about I think the moment that really stole the evening was Representative Laura Boebert, who she actually shouted out as Biden was getting close to the end, as he was beginning to wrap the speech. She actually shouted something out that immediately got boos from Democrats, and I suspect some Republicans as well. We've got video of that, and we're going to flesh that out here in just a minute. But there are several other things we want to talk about related to this, and then we'll end, by the way, we will end with Tara's favorite Joe Biden gaffes from the State of the Union.
Boy.
All of that's coming up. But first off, I think the thing, as we were covering it last night, I was watching Michael, and I think the thing he got most exercised about were ridiculous, outlandish, and sometimes just straight up lies told by Biden about the economy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was rough. It was hard to watch. I was repeatedly pulling out, going back and forth between pulling out my hair and like punching the desk, and just how could someone get away with saying all of this crap? But he didn't speak about economic issues that much, even though this is the State of the Union, and that seems to be the biggest problem in the union right now.
Well, and economic justice is sort of the left's thing.
Biden said the phrase supply chains twice throughout the night. He said the word inflation like 6 times. He didn't go through it too much, but when he did, he got everything exactly wrong. Exactly 100%
It was amazing.
Wrong. Yeah.
It was amazing. So antithetical to the facts each time.
Yes, and this was especially the case with inflation, and we're going to play a clip for you in a second about the suggestion Biden had to businesses. All right, if you want to deal with inflation, here's what you should do with wages, here's what you should do with costs, and here's that clip for you.
One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages.
So what he said there was lower your costs, not your wages.
Gosh.
Oh, man.
Why didn't we think to do that?
That's such an...
Why didn't anyone think
Thank
to do
goodness
that?
Biden was here to tell us that. Lower your costs, not your wages. As if corporations that have been corrupt or just all of a sudden got way more corrupt in the last year than they have been for the past 20 years or whatever. But just ridiculous. And this, it just speaks to this kind of idea that Democrats have about economics, which is that like businesses should essentially just donate money to make sure that their workers are taken care of. I mean, you don't deserve, like when you sign a contract with somebody, when you decide to go work for somebody, that's a consensual exchange. You're agreeing to give them your services, and they're agreeing to give you a certain amount of money. Mm-hmm. You're not being exploited if you could back out at any time. Yep. So the idea that, they need to get paid more because it's not fair. No, it is 100% fair. And you don't deserve to get paid more just because it would make your life easier.
Well, it's also internally contradicted. You're right. It's like they're thinking suddenly businesses became much more Machiavellian over the last year. But at the same time, it's like, oh no, businesses were being super. I don't even know what the word is, but the idea that they weren't being well, no, but it's the opposite of that too, because it's like they weren't being unbelievably greedy before. Because if you say, why don't they just lower the costs? It's like they already would have done that if they could. That's the whole point to profit, is they would totally lower the cost so they could put more money in their pockets if they could. So this assumes that not only have they been far more greedy lately, it also assumes they've not been far more greedy lately. It's internally contradictory.
Yes. And of course, one of the biggest costs for a lot of, smaller to middling businesses is their employees, is the payroll. And if you tell them, well, you can't lower wages, but you have to lower costs, what are they going to do? They're going to hire less people. They're going to hire more people part-time. I worked at UPS for a while. And the union at UPS, they fought so hard for wage increases. They're like, this is gonna
very strong union.
This is gonna help, everybody's lives, all of the delivery drivers. You know what happened? They started hiring weekend delivery guys. They didn't have to pay as much. They started cutting people's hours. It's like, well, you're getting all this pay, but you're actually making less money, and that happens at every level. Whenever there's a minimum wage increase and all of that stuff. That wasn't even the thing Biden said that made me the most angry. Now, there's another clip that we're going to play for you now. This is what really ticked me off, and I'll explain why after it's played.
We pay for my jobs and family plan. I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficit. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Just their fair share. Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share.
Well, I just noticed a pretty funny thing. So Biden said that exact same thing at this State of the Union.
If it sounded familiar,
that was actually what he said last year. I accidentally
you couldn't hear it, but there were just moans of disappointment from the booth.
So, yeah, I that's actually all my fault since I sent that clip to our producer.
Or perhaps those might have been moans of disappointment from the viewers that we heard come back through the cameras, possibly.
No, I was yelling at the screen last night. Biden did talk about making the rich pay their fair share. He talked about all of that this year, and it's based on a lie. Like, the rich do pay their fair share. Now, we ran a story a couple weeks ago about how Elizabeth Warren was crying about how Elon Musk paid $0 in taxes in 2018. That's not true. He paid, he paid zero income taxes because he didn't have any straight up income to pay taxes on in 2018. A lot of guys at that level of the economy, a lot of their income that they make comes from like trading stocks and stock options and stuff like that, and you don't pay taxes on that until you liquidate it.
Yeah, he just used the system that Congress put in place, that Democrats put in place.
Well, and when he did liquidate it in 2021, Elon Musk had the largest tax bill in U.S. history. He paid $11 billion in taxes. So he's paying his fair share. And they talk a lot about this, about, the rich, they're paying so little in income tax. But there's all kinds of taxes that, people like that pay. They pay sales taxes, property taxes, payroll taxes, corporate taxes. The list goes on, estate taxes. And Elon Musk, probably on one of his major purchases, pays more in sales taxes than Elizabeth Warren or Joe Biden has paid in taxes their entire lives. So the idea that they're not paying their fair share is ridiculous. But also, the other complicating factor of this is that they're saying, okay, they're going to pay their fair share, and then we're going to be able to fund all this, crap that the government's doing that'll help your lives get all this much better. In reality, there's increasing taxes on the rich does not create more money for the government. That doesn't mean that the rich is all of a sudden gonna, we're gonna have $20 billion more in tax revenue for the government to spend. In reality, when you raise taxes on the rich, they take their investments elsewhere. They start, putting their money in shelters overseas, and then other countries start benefiting. You got other countries, because of American money moving over there, they get higher output, rising incomes, more tax revenue for those countries, and more jobs created in those countries. So his solution to fight inflation, to fight jobs being lost, is to basically send all of our money overseas. That's the end result of these higher tax rates, and it's utterly ridiculous.
Well, that goes hand in hand with another policy that the left is backing right now, that Davos is for, and that is eliminating overseas tax havens. So there would be a universal tax across every country for for businesses. So the idea
Yeah.
is you essentially hold the businesses hostage. If they're going to pay a 10% tax no matter where they incorporate, then they're going to hang in their home country, presumably. That's the idea. But it's but again, then that gets back to the costs issue. We go back to just, we'll just lower costs. Well, if you're increasing taxes, that means you're raising costs. It is so strange. It's like all of these things are disconnected in the mind of the left. None of these things relates to another.
And they assume that every business just has all this extra money hanging around that they're just keeping for themselves while they exploit all their workers. You know, there are businesses that do that, and there are businesses that have been made more powerful by regulations and COVID lockdowns. Everything Biden and the federal government is doing to, regulate big business and to, increase taxes on corporations, that ends up hurting small businesses the most. Corporations welcome that because it eliminates all of their competition. And then guess what? They get to pay you way less per hour. So,
it's so hard. It's so hard to understand this because it's easy to look at somebody like Musk or the Walton family or Bill Gates and think, good gracious, look at all the money they've got. Man, if they would just lower prices at Walmart or for Windows or whatever, then look how much better off the country would be. But the only reason they have that much money is because of scale. It's not like, I mean, they are making pennies, fractions of pennies per sale, per transaction. So it's not like giving up. You said like how much was Musk's tax bill? 11 billion. So 11 billion, and what's the budget right now? I mean, gosh, probably 1.6, 1.7 trillion, something like that. So that's less than 1,000th of the annual budget for the United States, and that's the richest guy ever.
Yes,
I mean. It doesn't work the way they think it works.
Yeah.
But it's really easy to point to rich people and say they're not paying their fair share.
And, I kind of a big theme for all the things we're talking about with what Biden was saying at the State of the Union is unintended consequences and how your actions, you can say you're doing one thing and you can actually believe that it's accomplishing some sort of goal. But, the end results, the actions, that's what matters. And the end result of raising taxes like this, costs are going to get pushed on to consumers. The average American is going to be paying more for stuff. Yeah. There's going to be less jobs, less job creation, less tax revenue for the government in many cases.
Yeah, sure.
So, and that's, there was unintended consequences for that. And there was unintended consequences for, us moving away from energy independence and shutting off the pipeline.
Pipelines.
Biden first got in office.
Pipelines.
The Keystone Pipeline.
Would you like to take pipelines?
Oh, yes. So if everyone remembers, back when Biden first took office, one of the very first things he did was shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Why? Because it's much better to have Russia run the world's pipeline and then pay to ship that overseas to America rather than just get that directly pumped here. And of course, the one person we can thank for that is probably Greta Thunberg, or how I like to say Greta Thunberg, even though I know that's incorrect. And it just comes down to this ridiculous state of the United States where we're sitting here and bowing to 16-year-olds. The fact that we're seriously looking at a 16-year-old for what we should be doing with energy policy and global policy and just total U.S. independence is utterly ridiculous. I mean, if I were to stand at the UN and go, it's not fair. What was the thing that she repeated over and over again?
Stolen our future.
Like you should be ashamed or something,
like
whatever. Shame on you.
Like
shame on you.
She was 16
shame.
then.
Yeah.
I think she's like 18 now.
Like shame. And it's like, if I just went to the UN and complained, I would hope someone would be like, that 16-year-old girl's a 16-year-old girl, get her off the podium.
Yeah.
And so that's just what we've seen going on. And we've seen that just kind of across broader politics with, the David Hoggs of the world and things like that, where like a teenager has a run-in with something and then suddenly becomes an expert on the policy surrounding it. And it's just not a good thing. So Biden ended up talking about our renewable energy, and I'm pretty sure we have a clip for that one. I don't know.
Could we get a clip from last year's State of the Union where he was talking about energy?
Clip. Oh, God.
Maybe we don't have a clip of that.
Yeah, maybe we don't. But yeah, it was just disastrous. What do you guys think?
Much like this.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, and not only did he cancel Keystone, their policy in Europe was such that it made Europe just that much more dependent on Russian energy.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem right now is that Europe, especially Eastern Europe, they don't have their own fuel. They don't have as great a pool of energy resources as Russia does, and they're experimenting with green energy, which is far, far, far less efficient.
Yeah.
So they are completely dependent on Russia. That's where Russia's wealth has come from too. Wages have barely changed since 2003. I think they've gone up 3% or something like that.
Yeah, and if you look at the country as a whole, I was reading this article, I believe it was from Politico, and it was just talking about how Florida itself has like a better GDP than Russia entirely, and it's Florida, which is just insane.
Yeah, and they are. And the Russians are dying off too. They're not having enough children. So Putin knows his time is limited, but he does have a chokehold on Eastern Europe, and Europe, and particularly Eastern Europe. And the Trump administration arguably was the hardest U.S. administration ever on Russia. At least the Russian Federation.
It's weird that they helped him steal the 2016 election.
Yeah, it's so ironic.
What are the chances of that?
I love helping my arch enemies
foolish.
get to where they need to be. So.
They were so foolish.
Yeah.
So Biden could have taken steps to actually help Europe be less dependent. But he did not do that, and so now, thankfully, Europe actually is manning up, which I'm a little bit surprised at. We'll see how far they go, but that that Germany was actually interested in providing military power, and granted, we normally don't like German military power leaving German borders, but in this case, at least the moral support is appreciated.
I think Switzerland even said, came out and was like, "Oh, you can't fly in our airspace" or something.
Yeah, the Swiss. Finally, and they're wanting the U.S. to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine, but we're loath to do that. Even Joe Biden, I don't think, is going to get that one wrong. Okay, so pipeline issues. He talked about pipelines. Then, I think you guys probably noticed too, probably most of you watching noticed, he spent roughly a quarter of the State of the Union, at least the first 20 minutes or so, talking about the Ukraine. There's far more conversation about the Ukraine than there was about the United States.
Yeah. There was maybe like 20 to 21 references of like Ukraine/Ukrainians, Russians, Putin, and there was one reference the whole speech to gas prices.
Yeah.
Which this is the State of the Union. This is not the state of the world. This is not the state of, faux democracies that we should kind of care about, but not actually be super in support of.
Yeah,
we don't want Russia to be invading, but Ukraine's not the bastion of hope and democracy that it's being sold to be by all their propaganda that's going out there. But
to Americans' credit, we don't like seeing a large power bully a smaller power, and that is what this is. Even if the smaller power is corrupt, so is the larger power.
That's true.
We're corrupt. We're just less corrupt than the others.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny because it's like I think about like Joe Biden going home and writing his thank you cards that night, and it's "Dear Putin, thank you so much for stopping the world pandemic. I appreciate you so much." And then it's another one where it's like "Dear Putin, thanks so much for eating 25 minutes of my speaking time tonight."
I didn't really have anything to talk about because everything I've done
to say, so you really helped me out there.
Everything I've ever done is an epic disaster. So thank goodness something's happening in Ukraine. I could just distract.
I love that in your world, Joe Biden goes home and writes post State of the Union thank you cards to people.
I don't know. Well, it's like I think it's awesome. Is it Jimmy Fallon who does like the thank you notes at the end of his show?
Yes.
Like I don't know. That's just what it reminded me of. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this may end up being spectacular for Biden. Things were looking super shaky at first, but the media has run plenty of cover for Biden here. Everybody's focused on the fireworks that are happening. I don't mean that cynically, that are happening in Ukraine and what Putin's going to do next, and is Moldova next, and all of those things. It has taken an immense amount of pressure, I think, in the medium run off of Biden. And yes, now magically COVID is cured.
Yeah.
COVID is gone.
It's amazing.
It was either earlier yesterday or the day before Biden was spotted at the White House. I think he was by himself wearing a mask. And then last night he was in the chamber without a mask with a bunch of elderly people.
He was seen again today wearing a mask outside.
Well,
so
makes
sense.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, when me and my mom drove through the desert, I had us both wear life vests just in case. So
you drowned?
Yeah, just in case. Like you never know what could happen.
Yeah, about as much sense. But yeah, it's hilarious that COVID is just over now, especially considering So the first flu season under Trump, there was a higher spike in deaths during there. It lasted under Biden. The deaths, the flu season deaths lasted way longer. And if you compare the months of September to January in 2020 and 2021, roughly the same exact amount of deaths. In January of this year under Biden, we saw the largest numbers of cases by far. Like before that, I think the most cases in one day was like 500,000. It was a few 100,000. In January, the highest case day was 1.35 million.
Wow.
So COVID's not gone. It's not all of a sudden safer. People are still dying, but they want it to be over because November's coming up and they don't want to lose all their elections.
It's almost like staying inside for a year and sanitizing everything that exists is bad for your immune system. I mean,
that actually hurts you.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing here. It's like everybody has been sick for months, and there was only one little window where it was COVID. But everybody is getting stuff all the time right now. Yeah. So, all right, we talked about the economy, we talked about pipelines, we talked about Ukraine and how Biden dealt with that. Yep. Let's talk about how he began wrapping the speech up, and this is going to get us to Laura Boebert's moment, which was pretty epic. But he laid out a 4-part unity plan. So, remember you'll make the point because you make this super well. But
okay, we'll see.
Remember, Biden was talking about unity. Biden was supposed to be the unifying candidate. He was supposed to bring us all together. Well, he advanced a 4-part agenda to bring unity to the country. Those 4 parts, in case you weren't watching or dozed off or whatever the case may be, those 4 parts were deal with the opioid crisis. That's part 1.
Yay.
Part 2, address mental health issues. Part 3, support our veterans. I'll agree on that. Part 4, end cancer as we know it.
Ooh, what a brave stance.
What a brave stance.
The pro-cancer lobby is really going to be a problem for Joe Biden.
So there are, the cancer lobbyists are going to be so there are a couple ways you can look at this. You can look at this as like, okay, this is unbelievably cowardly because we can all pretty much agree on all of this. Yep. Yeah, okay, that's one perspective. Another one is we are so divided at this point that these are 4 of the only things we can agree on. Go ahead.
I was thinking back, I think it's House of Cards at the beginning of that show. They say, oh, we're going to run on education and saving education in America because no one has a problem with that. And that's what that list really is. It's just like the middle of the road.
It's just a joke. They're just
It's a joke. It's such a joke.
Well, and think about the things that have caused these problems. The opioid epidemic, free trade hollowing out the inside of the country.
Yeah.
Mental health issues, well, leftist thinking, nihilism, lack of religiosity, lack of faith.
And lockdowns.
Massively, and lockdowns. Vet support, well, that's been a problem for the left since the 60s. Yep. Ending cancer, as far as I know, the left has not caused cancer. Maybe some brain cancer.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if we can lay that one at the left's feet. But the rest of this, they're trying to cure problems that they created. Yes. Anyway, I thought to myself, good gosh, if this is what we're fighting, if these are the 4 big things, the big threats, he didn't say they were the big threats, but if these are the big threats, we are living in a magical time.
Yeah.
Things are unbelievably magical right now. We used to have to worry about plague.
Yeah.
We used to have to worry about any number of things
Yeah.
that would kill us. There's so
Yeah.
many. It's hard to articulate.
Yeah, ending cancer is always at the top of my brain, especially when I pay $70 for gas. Just the first thing that I think about.
Yeah, ending cancer.
Well, yeah, and there's part of this is somewhat out of touch too, because these are not things these are things that need to be dealt with. Sure.
Yeah.
But I just love the idea. This is a unity. This
Yeah.
is a unity project on his part. And every time I say Joe Biden is about unity, what do you say?
Funny how he's about unity now when like 5 minutes ago he was saying everyone and anyone who disagrees with him on election law is a Jim Crow racist.
Oh, including,
That's
strangely enough, Joe Biden, who believed in all of the things that he now calls Jim Crow racist.
But no, I mean, the party of unity, I mean, yeah, what a joke. There's a lot of words that I'm thinking of saying right now, but I'll just settle down and say, what a joke. We're all Jim Crow racists. So what is he talking about with unity?
Yeah, and let's remember, it's not conservatives who changed the way the game is played. Conservatives definitionally are slow to change. They're traditional. If there is a divide, and there is a divide in this country, the divide is from people who left conservatism and are trying to change things. Those are the people who have divided us. And what the media does is they turn around, they say, hey, you people who are living in the past, you people who believe in traditional American values, traditional Judeo-Christian values, you're dividing us. Like, no, we have always been here. We've always been like this. It is the left, it is progressives that are dividing us.
Well, you can't even have, like, it used to be able to disagree on like certain issues of morality or whatever. And it's like, if you disagree on a certain moral issue or topic, even from a religious lens, people are being, oh, well, that's inherently like homophobic, inherently this, inherently that. And you have to not only like just be able to exist, like mutually exist with each other. You have to vehemently support and embrace and like just promote it. You know, that it's not good enough just to be able to exist.
Here's another another great unifying moment so far from the Biden administration. Putting parents on a domestic terrorist watch list for thinking it's bad to teach their kids that white people are evil.
Or that literature in the library that deals with homosexual rape is a bad thing. You know, so those people are terrorists.
Yeah.
Literally pornography. Parents that think that there shouldn't be pornography on public school shelves are evil domestic terrorists, according to Merrick Garland and the FBI and the Biden administration.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing. Like
the
I remember getting like sheets in high school to be like, okay, we're gonna read Night by Elie Wiesel. Get it signed by your parent, and then it's like, oh, here's this random pornographic book. Go read that. No one needs to sign off on that.
Genderqueer,
you know,
genderqueer,
whatever.
And while at the same time, To Kill a Mockingbird is being pulled. To Kill a Mockingbird's pulled because it's in some weird way racist because it's white ableist, white guilt,
white savior complex.
White savior complex. I couldn't remember. There's so many dumb terms.
Wow.
If you need any of those race slogans, you can always come to me.
So that's unity. That's Joe Biden's unity. Now that leads to he wrapped the unity section riffing on taking care of vets, and he was about to pull out the most reliable trope he has, which is Beau Biden, and he uses Beau. And I don't mean to be, I don't mean to be dismissive here. I don't mean to be cold-hearted. But he uses Beau Biden's death from cancer as a talking point.
It's sad.
And his armor.
He's done it.
And so he was setting up for that. And I don't think Boebert saw where he was going with it. Maybe she did. I don't think she saw it. But she did see her opening when he started talking about taking care of service members. And then what happened? That was the moment that stole the night.
Yeah, she brought up the 13 service members that were killed in Afghanistan.
Yeah, she shouted it.
She yelled it out
from the floor. From the floor.
Yeah.
And there was silence, and then almost immediately boos. All over the place.
And guess what? We do have a clip of that one.
Do we?
I believe.
Let's see. I think we have a clip of that one.
Many of the world's fittest and best trained warriors in the world, never the same. Headaches, numbness, dizziness. A cancer that would put them in a flag draped coffin. I know.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's gutsy. And they will say that, oh my gosh, this was a breach of decorum. You don't do this. You don't let. I mean, who was it who yelled out liar when Biden, during one of Obama's States of the Union? I can't remember who it was. But, you know, that was the conversation the next day to me. Oh, it's so disrespectful. These are hallowed chambers. You don't behave like that.
And then, of course, you know, ripping a Trump speech to smithereens is just making confetti,
that's
apparently.
Fine. Yeah,
so
what Pelosi did last time. That's perfectly fine. So, but it's the truth. It is the truth. Biden's unbelievably inept retreat from Afghanistan, and defeat in Afghanistan resulted in 13 American service members lying in flag-draped coffins. The very thing he said we did not want to happen in that speech.
Oh, yeah. And then at those funerals, or when they were being, like, you know, brought back from their planes and everything, he checked his watch like 3 times, like, during that whole procession. Like, that was a huge thing in the news. And if Trump did that, it would have been all over. But because it's bumbling Joe, like, you know, it doesn't matter.
But, yeah, this move from Boebert I thought was pretty, you know, in a perfect world, do I want you know, people to shout out during the State of the Union address no matter what's said? Probably not.
Sure.
Like, maybe not. But just rhetorically, from a strategic standpoint, she took over the narrative of the night. And it was a brilliant move because everything, you know, Joe Biden couldn't talk about anything because everything he's ever done has been a total and complete disaster. So the only thing people are going to remember is the fact they're going to be reminded about what he did in Afghanistan, which is his worst. That's when he really started tanking, was after that. So,
and that set the stage. Again, we talked about it. He spent 25% of the speech on Ukraine. Afghanistan set the stage for that to happen. And she just reminded everyone of that. It really actually tied the entire thing together in a bow pretty nicely. All right, so that's almost all of the State of the Union. But before we go, we're going to leave you with Tara's favorite Biden guess.
Oh, yeah. There are quite a few, but we have the top 3. So we'll play the first clip, add a little commentary, and just go through them.
Yep.
He may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love of freedom, and he will never weaken the resolve of the free world. As Sherrod Brown says, it's time to bury the label Rust Belt. It's time to see the what used to be called the Rust Belt become the home of a significant resurgence of manufacturing. And with all the bright spots in our economy, we won't stop. Because you can't build a wall high enough to keep out a vaccine. The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases.
Yeah, so that was pretty much all of them. So we had the Uranians. I've never met one. I really want to.
Yeah, weird how they're involved with the whole Ukraine situation. I don't get how that
I know.
Exactly
I wonder
works.
if they're like the Smurfs, like off in the forest.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but actually, after he says that, you could see Kamala Harris behind him going, Ukraine. It's like she's sounding it out herself because she's so embarrassed and frustrated. But
yeah.
It's a brilliant moment, and I too am worried about the Ukrainians. I think we all are. I actually should not mock Biden on any of these things after I lost my train of thought twice in this episode and was reaching for words that I couldn't get.
But at least you have the good sense to like pause, think about it, and like
and,
it
and
sucks
go,
in the
and
audience.
Not
go, the thing and it.
I don't know, but yeah, that is true. I've never referred to God as you know
the thing.
Yeah, that's true. And then I mean, trying to call, what was he trying to rename the Rust Belt as? The place where things are manufactured or used to be, something like that. I think Rust Belt's a little pithier myself.
Yeah, that's pretty good. What used to be known as the Rust Belt.
What used to be
known as the Rust Belt. I was like,
until 30 seconds ago, it was still known as the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. So I think our assessment, fairly anodyne speech. It's what I would probably expect from Joe Biden. Some fan service in there, some contradictory comments about the economy, faux unity.
Yep.
Yes.
And I mean, there were. I'll tell you one thing we didn't talk about. I don't remember there being any implications of racism in there. I don't remember him implying conservatives.
No, he tried. They definitely
or
tried
America's
to.
racist,
He tried to back
is
off
something.
a lot of that stuff in the speech. Like
No.
he tried to walk back to seem more moderate, but nobody believes him. So.
And I continue to think. I think I'm the only one who believes this. Maybe the only one in the newsroom. I don't know if any of you watching believe it. I actually think he probably wants to try to get to a moderate position.
Yes.
But it is absolutely impossible. We said he was an empty vessel when he was running. He has been filled with leftist bile, and he has leftists tugging on him as hard as possible toward the left. There is absolutely zero hope of him being strong enough to move toward the middle.
Yeah, well, his entire career has been politics. I think you're right. I don't think it matters what he actually believes. He just wanted to get the cherry on top for his career. So
Well, and he had tried and he'd run so many times, and he used to be so engaging, and he was. There was a lovableness to him. Yeah. I mean, I never would have voted for the guy, but I used to love seeing him on Meet the Press and stuff back in Tim Russert's days. Anyway, all right. So that's the State of the Union down. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. What happens going forward with Ukraine? How the Biden administration manages to mess that up? Maybe they won't. We'll see. But that is it for us on this Wednesday. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out all of Western Journal's coverage of Ukraine, the State of the Union, and everything else going in the world of politics and culture at westernjournal.com. Just by visiting our pages, you are helping provide income for us. You are helping fund what we do here. And I've said it many times before, we're not a rich company. We don't belong to a billionaire. We don't have a billionaire backer. We're a small family-owned company in Arizona. And if you would like to directly support us, if you feel led to, that would be wonderful. And you can go to westernjournal.com/join. There are several options there for how you can directly support the work we are doing every day in the trenches, fighting back against the left, fighting for conservative values, fighting for Christian principles, and fighting for America. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, be sure to click the subscribe button. After that, a little bell's going to pop up. Click that bell. That's going to make sure every time we go live, you get a notification. And if you're watching on YouTube, start watching on Rumble instead, because Rumble rocks and YouTube does not. We are, and just so you know, this week we have been absolutely strangled by Facebook beginning at the end of last week and then into this week. We have been strangled by Facebook. They are absolutely trying to destroy us right now. The question is it intentional or is it incompetence? One way or the other, we absolutely need your help. So again, if you feel led to directly support us, you can go to westernjournal.com/join. All right, that's it for us. We will be back Friday because we are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Till then,